Now been 3 weeks since this violent cell phone video capturing a local teenager accused of trying to attack the White House. Well, now federal prosecutors say he planned other attacks. Tonight, Sai Kandula remains jailed, and he's going to stay there. News 4 investigator Susan El Khoury has new court records detailing much more about the West County teen.
We've been looking through filings where lawyers for Sai Kandula claim his family wants him home in Missouri and his parents would let him stay with them on house arrest. Ultimately, the judge saw things differently.
Cell phone video and surveillance pictures capture what federal prosecutors argue rises to terrorism when they say Sai Kandula drove a rental truck into barriers by the White House last month, then got out and grabbed a Nazi flag before being arrested. But in court filings, the 19-year-old's lawyer claims Kandula isn't a flight risk or a danger to the community, so shouldn't be kept in jail. They argue Kandula has the dedication and support of his family who want him to return home to live with them. It's the same house in Chesterfield. News 4 saw federal investigators searching hours after the May attack. Kandula's lawyers point to his ties to Missouri and included a picture of his diploma from Marquette High School. He graduated in 2021. They also say he took classes at Maryville University over the last year. The motion goes on to argue Kandula has no means to cause harm if released. There are no weapons in his parents' home, and there never have been. Federal prosecutors say Kandula planned to overthrow the government and say they found a green book where he wrote a speech for his takeover. They say the book also included entries about harming family members and other individuals. During a recent hearing, federal prosecutors argued Kandula planned other attacks that he didn't carry out. According to the Washington Post, details were discussed during a closed hearing.
Since Kandula didn't get bond, he'll be staying in jail. He's due back in court for a preliminary hearing in July. We'll keep following what happens. Susan El Khoury, News 4 investigates.
And Kandula's lawyers also drew comparisons to the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. They claim multiple people accused in the insurrection have been allowed to get out on bond, and Kandula should be given that same chance.
The search continues.